four-time Emmy-nominated producer, Frank Pace, with retired New York City firefighter and Vietnam vet, Billy O'Connor. Davis man.
Retired New York City firefighter and Vietnam vet, Billy O'Connor. How you doing, brother?
Hi, brother. How the hell are you? I heard Derek give that little gay lick thing in there at the end. The gay lick. You know what, Frank? That's what we used to say in the neighborhood. You know, if we had a lot of gay guys, we had an Irish gay guy, we called him a gay lick. If he was a Jewish gay guy, we called him a he blue. And then if it was an Italian gay guy, well, we just called him a fucking giddy cocksucker.
Oh,
Good old days.
And we're off.
Good old days. Well, we're off. Yeah. I hope we don't get censored for that. You think the politically correct people are going to come down on our heads for that?
Our censor is down below, Derek Harris. Do you think we're going to get censored, Derek?
Oh, we're going to try it. Maybe it'll be like last week where they took down all our videos.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah. We were down for a while.
That was
I
scary.
think that was pilot error, wasn't that, Derek?
Pilot error? How dare you? Never.
No, I thought it was because of the recent crackdown on Facebook or something. I thought they took us down. I said, we're not that controversial, for God's sake. What the hell are they going for?
You mean Billy the pilot?
Yeah, no. I meant Derek the pilot.
Oh, okay. Just checking.
By the way, if you see my screen, I don't even know my name. I'm not the Mick. I think I put down a Mick there.
You totally did.
We'll just call you fucking giddy cocksucker.
That's what my friend Lord Mars used to call me.
Wow, that's a nice friend.
Yeah, so I don't even know. I'm the Mook. I just want to the Mick. I'm going to be the Mick throughout the entire episode. So,
You know, Frank, being from the Bronx, of course, you know, in New York, we call all our friends, hey, you cocksucker, hey, you hump, hey, you prick, how you doing, hey, you hump, you know. And when I first got out to Phoenix, you know, I've been meeting all these new people at the comedy clubs, and I go up see 5 or 6 comics, hey, you cocksuckers, how you doing? You know, did that guy just call me a cocksucker? Like, you know, what is that all about? And then, of course, in the comic business, there's a lot of gay comics. So there was one guy, Ty Rivera, especially, and it was like 6 comics. Hey, you cocksuckers, how you doing? Then I saw Ty. Oh, no offense, Ty. I didn't mean real cocksuckers.
So Derek, what did you say we wanted to talk about this week? Did you have an agenda for us this week?
An agenda? Wow, just threw me out there, flapping in the wind.
Yeah, well, because I don't remember what we talked about on my walk yesterday. So what did you talk about?
We talked about a lot of things, but we could talk about racial relations if you like. And I think that both of you guys are recovering racist, right?
You know, I used to have a friend.
No, really, you know what? Let me tell you something. I think all white people are recovering racists.
What do you mean recovering? I'm not recovering. I'm a racist.
I'm a racist.
You know, I was a guy from Boston. Of course, Boston is noted for being pretty racist. If you're gonna, you know, I mean, they didn't hire a black guy for the Celtics for I don't know how long. Anyway, this guy was from Boston. He's a comic, and Jamie Kamaya is his name, and he used to do a bit. And he said, you know, I was talking to one of my black friends, and I said to him, you know, how is it that you know, you guys get to say the N-word and we don't get to say the N-word? He says, why is that? The guy says, look, it's not important you understand. Just you got to realize it's our word. So he said, well, that's fair enough. He said, but I was doing a little research, and it turns out that it was our word way before it was your word.
I was doing a little research.
And he says, and if you think about it, if you talk to my grandfather, we never lost a word to begin with.
You know, that reminds me. I saw something on CNN last week or something after the riots, and it said black policeman holds off demonstrators in the Senate building. And I said, why did it have to say black policeman?
Yeah.
Why didn't it just say policeman?
Yeah. I mean, well, you know, I got to say, when I was watching that video,
Yeah.
he was backing up.
Yeah.
I was like screaming, crack that guy, just crack him with the bat, you know? Like I couldn't get the concept until I found out later he was decoying, you know, from the Senate.
Yeah. But why did it have to say black policeman? Why didn't it say policeman?
That's the problem. I mean, you know, why don't they say a short policeman or a fat policeman or a tall policeman or, you know, it's, I don't know why we're like that. I guess I do know why. It's systemic in our society for how long.
Yep.
Yeah, it is. I mean, to deny it is another guy I used to do comedy with used to do a joke about white privilege, and he says, "Listen, if you don't think there's white privilege in this country," he says, "I barely graduated high school because I'm the vice president of a bank." He says, "If you don't think there's white privilege, you wasted your white privilege." He said, "That's what's going on." Yeah, there's white privilege. Yeah.
Really? You've wasted your white privilege.
I got to know you, Frank. I'm in now.
Yeah.
I'm home now.
Having went to University of Florida, you were 58 years old.
Well, I'm a late bloomer, Frank. I'm a late bloomer. I'm a late bloomer.
Late bloomer.
Yeah, I'm a late bloomer.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to today's guest. We got this guy, Bob Bergen. How you managed to come up with the voice of Porky Pig, man. This is going to be hilarious for me. I can't wait to check this guy out. I hope he does all his voices.
Yeah, Bob's a good guy. You're going to like Bob a lot.
Well, he does, besides Porky Pig, he does Speedy Gonzalez. Does he do Woody Woodpecker too? Or he does...
I don't think he does.
We'll ask him when he comes on.
Yeah. We'll get all through that stuff. So, what else went on this week in your life, Billy? Tell me. You went for a walk yesterday. You played golf yesterday. What was it? What was your golf game like?
And you know, Frank, I don't even keep score anymore. I live in a mountain community. And there's like a little 9-hole course, and there's never anybody on it. I mean, it's great. And it's $12 to play the course, which is a far cry from the courses you play. But it's a beautiful little 9-hole course, and I'm not that serious about golf. I always said, if you show me a guy who's a scratch golfer, I'll show you a guy whose wife I can screw. because he ain't paying attention to something. That's for shit sure. Because to be a scratch golfer, you got to be all in. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I go out there, hit three balls or holes. I play 9 holes, and I walk the 9 holes, and it's a good little bit of exercise. And I hit 3 balls, and I don't even keep score. You know, if I hit 3 balls, and there's maybe 6 par 3s, 5 par 3s, and I get 2 balls on the green out of 3, and of course the other one goes out to Chicago someplace, you know. So I don't worry about it. You know, I just play for the sake of walking. I never thought golf was exercise. Now it's exercise.
You run into any critters on that golf course? What kind of critters do you have on the golf course?
I had a guy, a ranger, or whatever you call him. I guess he's a ranger, or whatever the guy that monitors the course up here, come up to me about 3 months ago. I was playing, and he came up to me and said, "There's a bear on the course. Just beware. There's a big brown bear on the course."
Wow.
And I said, "All right. Well, you know, but other than that, I mean, I see tons of rabbits. You know, rabbits. A lot of, you know, I don't see many deer.
Well, this has no.
Excuse me.
Blah, blah, blah. This has no relation to Billy's comment earlier, but I heard actually Frank is a really great golf player.
Not anymore.
What was the best you ever got? What was your handicap?
10, a little under 10.
That's pretty damn good.
I broke 80 a couple times.
That's pretty good.
I was never as good as I could have been. I would get, carried away. I could have like 10, 11 pars and then a couple of 8s. Because I was long but wild. So I would launch 1 or 2 out of bounds. And,
How many clubs did you break in Bend?
Oh, well, that's an interesting story. Because I was in my 20s, early 20s, and I was a thrower, golf. I was a break club. And I just quit. I didn't quit. I didn't play for 10 years.
Whoa!
Because I took the sport too seriously. And I finally, when I started playing again, I had to tell myself that you're not going to be any good So just accept it. You can't be good. It can't be good at everything. I'm good at very few things, but when I accepted that in golf, it got to be more pleasurable for me.
Well, you know what's frustrating to me about golf and why I don't take it seriously, because when I was playing at one time when I first retired, I was playing 5 days a week, and I got down to about a 92. I was shooting 92, but I was shooting 92 all the time, no matter what course I was playing on. So that really surprised me. But what's frustrating about golf is that you could play one hole as good as Jack Nicklaus. You'll never throw a football 75 yards.
Right.
You'll never hit a fastball off Ryan Duran or off
Ryan
Kofa.
Ryan Duran is your point of reference.
Well, didn't he throw the ball about 103 miles an hour? Wasn't he a lunatic with the thick Coke bottle glasses way back when?
Yeah, but why don't you use a current player?
Because I don't watch baseball anymore. Huh?
You got
a fastball player.
You got to go back to 1958.
Yeah, but Ryan Duran specifically because of the Coke bottle glasses, and he used to throw the ball all over the place. You know, he was a wild pitcher. But anyway,
and an
ain't hitting a fastball.
And an alcoholic.
Was he?
Yeah, he was a real bad alcoholic.
Now you know why I liked him. It was a kindred spirit. Anybody who wants to get drunk and go out on a mound with 6-inch glasses and throw the ball 103 miles an hour is my kind of guy. But you can't hit a fastball off of him. You can't throw a football 74 yards. But every now and then you'll play a hole and it'll be a perfect hole. Yep. So why can't you do it 18 times?
Focus, concentration.
Nah, it's more than that.
Composure.
Yeah.
Skill. And skill.
Yeah. You know, I always thought that golf wasn't really a sport because anything that an 82-year-old man could beat a 25-year-old kid at shouldn't be a sport. But when I was playing all the time, and like I said, as good as I ever got was 92. I broke 90 a couple of times. But when I was playing all the time, I realized that it gets to a certain level, and then talent and being an athlete kicks in, and I'm not an athlete.
Well, Ben Hogan was a great golfer in the 50s, 60s. He always used to say, secret's in the dirt. What he meant by that was you have to practice. And you have to hit thousands and thousands and thousands of golf balls. And you realize that a professional golfer's life, or anybody's, they play 7 days a week. They play 6 days a week. They hit tons and tons and tons of balls. I never was interested in practicing that hard.
Well, you know, you have to be obsessed. I mean, I was reading Tiger's practice thing through Armin, and you see he was playing like 36 holes a day. Then he hit like 4 hours on the range.
Yeah.
I mean, you know,
the secret's
like I said, and I'd be fooling around with his wife.
Yeah. That's correct.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
But I don't know what to get off of the golf, Jay. But I like the walk. Just nowadays, it's exercise for me. And I never thought that would be the case, that golf wasn't really exercise. But it is. When you get older, it's exercise. It's a walk.
John Feinstein wrote a book called A Good Walk Spoiled.
A long walk, a good walk spoiled.
Yeah. That's funny.
Golf course.
Yeah, it's a crazy game.
Well, you guys want to bring in Bob?
Yeah.
Get Porky Pig to play golf.
All right.
So
let's bring in Bob, the voice of Porky Pig. Bob has joined.
Hey, can you guys see me? Oh, there we are. Whoa.
Holy smokes.
What up?
Whose drunken heads are those in the background?
You know, it's so I collect
Hang on a second. Let me make introductions. This is Billy O'Connor.
Hey, Bob, how are you? Nice to know you, pal.
And that's Derek Harris down in the lower left-hand corner.
Okay, great. Well, hey, how are you? So I will tell you, Billy, you got the coolest voice, man. I listened to you guys converse on your previous podcast. it is just so much fun. It's just pure conversation. You guys are great together.
Man, I wish I had your voice. I mean, I'm dying to hear you do some bits.
Well, I gotta
Hey, wait.
I can tell you right now,
Here, Billy.
Whoa.
Okay, all right.
It's sort of like you want to save the good stuff for the camera. Guys, stop. This is great. Let's do it fresh. Don't want for
Yeah,
the
stop. It's too funny.
audience. Don't want for the audience. So I'll tell you about.
All right.
I'll tell you about the life masks. So I collect life masks of performers that I really love and respect. So I don't know if you can see, and it's hard to point it out, but that's this is hard. It's backwards. Hang on. That's Brando and Cagney.
Get up and point to it.
It's hard because I'm kind of backwards. That's Boris Karloff and Bob Hope, and hang on. This is so hard, you guys, because it's all backwards for me. That's Robin Williams, Buster Keaton, and over here we've got Nicholson and Vincent Price is there, and Hitchcock.
I see Hitchcock.
Yeah, and up above, if you can see this, at the very top is Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr.
Very cool.
And this all started because I was looking. Now, why would he have one? But I was looking for a life mask of Mel Blanc. Now, why would Mel Blanc have a life mask? But I found Alfred Hitchcock, and I went, that's cool. And I just bid on auction. And there's still a handful that I want that I haven't been able to get because they go too fast or they're too expensive. And I'm not too proud to say I'm just a nice, cheap Jewish boy. So I'm not going to pay full price for anything like that. But across the way, you can't see it. I've got James Dean and Katharine Hepburn. But I'm waiting for my De Niro. I'm waiting for my Pacino. It would be cool if I could get one of Lucy. I don't think she ever did one. She might have. The contract actors always did a life mask back in the days of contract players.
Oh, why don't you explain to Billy what a contract player is?
Well, a contract player, and it kind of stopped in the 70s, but back in the old days, the contract system, an actor was under contract to a studio, and that contract got them a guaranteed check every week, whether they were working or not. But it also kept them working, and it kept them in classes, and it got them publicists. So they would do a life mask of every contracted actor. So if they're doing a movie that called for extensive makeup, they wouldn't have to sit in the makeup chair to try on this nose and this ear, et cetera, et cetera. Today, the contract system, I was a tour guide at Universal. I know a lot of this crap. Universal's last contracted actor and the last contracted part was the series version of House Calls that was based on a movie, House Calls, and the actress was Sharon Gless. She was the last Universal contracted actress and part at Universal.
And very, very often at Warner Brothers, at least, the contracted actors didn't show up to work till 8 o'clock, and at 5 o'clock they left to go home.
That's right. That's right. And one of the reasons you didn't hear Mel Blanc in a lot of non-Warner Brothers parts is because he was under contract with Warner Brothers, and they didn't want to loan him out because they had a gold mine with Warner Brothers, and they didn't want. And he had one role in a Disney film, and it's uncredited. It's in the movie Pinocchio, and he does a hiccup for the cat. And that's it.
So Mel Brooks was under contract for
Mel Blanc.
Well, no, I like
Mel Blanc. I'm sorry, Mel Blanc.
Mel Brooks might have been too, but Mel Blanc was under. In fact, if you go on eBay, people are all the time selling his contracts, and again, they're too expensive for me. But it would be kind of cool to have his contract. And Mel Blanc did not make a lot of money doing those original shorts. He started making his money with television, with commercials, but the original Warner Brothers shorts did not make him rich. Radio did quite well for him because he was doing 2 to 5 live radio shows a day. And he would literally, in Sunset and Vine in Hollywood was where NBC was. I forget the other one. Might have been the Mutual Broadcasting System. And he would just literally go from studio to studio doing live broadcasts.
And you talk about Mel Blanc. God damn it, Billy! You put Mel Brooks in my freaking head. You idiot!
It slipped out.
Blanc.
I know who Mel Blanc is.
I know you know, but you wanted to be Mel Blanc since you were 5 years old.
Yeah, pretty much. I was just a fan of the cartoons. My mom tells a story that when I was really young, Saturday morning cartoons, she was in the kitchen doing whatever she was doing. I was in the living room, and she would hear a line on the cartoon, and then she would hear it again. And then she would hear another line, and she would hear it again, and she thought, that's a really odd cartoon. She stood behind me, and she watched me mimicking the cartoons, back to the cartoon. Now, as a kid, my voice hadn't changed, but I had some kind of a talent for this. And the true story. I told my mom when I grew up, I wanted to be Porky Pig, and she said, "You can't be Porky Pig. You're Jewish." And I didn't know what that meant because we were with a menorah next to a Christmas tree. So it was not something I even thought would be a roadblock. But I got lucky. My dad moved the family to Los Angeles when I was 14, not for me to do this, but because he took a job here. And I just said, okay, well, I'm gonna see what I can do to pursue this.
And you were really resourceful in your pursuit. And that's a lot of things that it takes to be successful also. You have to be resourceful. Like last week, we talked to Don Scardino, and Don ran into Aaron Sorkin, who was walking around with scripts, and it was one of the scripts for A Few Good Men. And he said, I want to do this on Broadway. And he remembered Don, and Don was nice to him, and Don directed the play. Like, you were resourceful when you went to see Mel Brooks for the first time.
You said
story.
It's stuck in your head, Mel Brooks. God bless Mel Brooks.
Mel, it's Billy's fault.
Of course it is. Of course it's my fault. Socialism. Put that in your head instead. Socialism.
There you go. So I think Frank, you'll probably agree with this. Successful people have some common denominators. It does start with talent. Certainly you get a lot of luck. Certainly it's who you know, but a lot of it is nothing's going to stop me. I'm just going to do it. I'm going to take risks. Some of the risks that people take are just like what you just said with Sorkin. I just thought I was going to call Mel Blanc and just say, look, I just arrived from the Midwest. I'm living here now. I've seen you on TV. You're getting up there in age. Has anybody offered you a chance to retire? And I really thought I was being generous. I thought I was being a nice guy. And so I look in the phone book, and his number's not there. Now, I'm from the Midwest. Everybody's in the phone book. I never knew the concept of unlisted number. And my dad tried to explain to me, look, Los Angeles is a much larger city than Cincinnati, which is where we came from at the time. So my dad traveled from like Pasadena to Malibu and just stopped off in post offices where they would give away the white page phone books for the area. And he brought me this giant, like 5-foot stack of white page phone books. And one Saturday, I just started calling every Mel or M blank in the book or books. And I taped the conversation. And I'll cut to the end right now, but I'll tell you how I got there. I taped the conversation, and the conversation's on my website, which is 100% illegal. You're not allowed to do that in California, but I think it's been over 4 days. So my parents were out in the kitchen. I had my little portable tape recorder, and I put the phone on the built-in microphone, ran into my parents' bedroom, found the first Mel or M blank in whatever book I had. Hi, is this? I'm calling for the cartoon guy Mel Blanc. I'm sorry, wrong number. Hung up, ran in the kitchen, hung up the phone, turned off the tape recorder, turned it back on. I kept doing that all day long until I couldn't find it. And then I thought, well, maybe it's under his wife's name. His wife's name was Estelle. I knew that. So I found E blank in the Pacific Palisades phone book, got him on the phone. He had a lovely conversation with me. If you listen on my website, the conversation is cut short because I listened to that cassette tape so many times over a week or two. The tape broke. And I was distraught. I threw it away. My mom retrieved the tape. And about 20 years ago, she said, hey, I found this tape in the back of a drawer. This is that Mel Blanc phone call. Do you think somebody can fix it? And I took it to a buddy at a studio who spliced it back together and digitally enhanced it a little bit. So that's the tape I've got right now, but a chunk of the conversation's missing. So going back to the tenacity part of my journey, this is the part that's missing from the tape. Mel Blanc, he mentioned the name of the studio he was working at that week. He didn't say the day or the time. He said the name. So when I was done talking to him, I called that studio, pretending to be his assistant. And I said, hi, I'm just calling to confirm Mr. Blank's appointment for this Thursday at 9. I just made up that day and that time. And the receptionist says, well, we have him on the books for Wednesday at 11. I went, oh my gosh, I'm looking at the wrong day in the calendar. I'm so sorry. Yes, we will see you Wednesday at 11. And I said to my mom, I'm skipping school on Wednesday, and you're going to take me to see Mel Blanc work. And she said, cool. So we got to the studio. and I told the receptionist that we were guests of Mel Blanc. He invited us to watch, and she said he's in that booth over there. When we walked into that booth, I said to his producer, "Hi, we're friends of the receptionist," and she said we could watch, and I watched him work.
Wow,
That's
relentless, just relentless.
But I didn't think it was unusual because my feeling is, hey, you want to be a brain surgeon? Call the top brain surgeon at UCLA and say, how did you do it? Where'd you go to school? Who'd you study with? You want to be a ball player? Call a ball. I didn't think this was unusual.
Yep, that's exactly what I tell kids. I said it's just as hard to break in Jacksonville, Florida, as it is to break in Los Angeles. So why don't you be in Los Angeles or be in New York, or if you're a musician, be in Nashville, because it's just as hard any place you are. So if you're in Los Angeles, you're like 3 steps closer to being successful than breaking into Jacksonville and figuring you're going to work your way up to Atlanta, then work your way up to Los Angeles. By the time you work your way up to Los Angeles, you're probably 40 years old and it's too late.
Well, listen, the cream floats to the top. Some people are going to take the risks and do what they have to do. An actor who comes to LA and finds 3 or 4 roommates and is waiting tables. And I mean, I was a tour guide at Universal for 5 years. The first 5 years I had an agent. And the first 5 years, it was hit or miss auditions. And those were the days before home studios. I can't tell you how many times I had a toothache. I think I had the same grandmother die 3 times because I had the audition, then I had the callback. I had called in sick. I was doing sitcoms. I used to do on camera. I don't anymore. But I kept booking The Facts of Life, One Day at a Time, Silver Spoons, all shot at Universal. And they put my freaking honey wagons in the tram route. And so I could hear a tram coming. I called in sick. They didn't know I was working on a show. So I was Assad Khalada, the nicest guy on the planet, who was the director of so many shows I did. I said,
he did a lot. He was the house director on Who's the Boss, I think. Assad.
Is that right?
Yep.
I said, Assad, if I'm a little bit late, forgive me. I'm dodging a tram. And he said, oh, don't worry about it. It's all good. So the bottom line is, look, it's not unusual when you hear that there are similar just drives and passions in the successful writer, actor, producer, musician, because they have to do it. It's not like, hey, I'm going to give this a shot. There's no falling back. There's no second. It's this or nothing.
Yeah, your fear was like mine. You'd have to get a real job if this didn't work out. So I lived in fear of having to get a real job.
I got to be honest with you. For 5 years, I worked 5 days and 7 nights in those survival jobs so I could afford. When I left Universal, they actually fired me because I had 32 sick days my last year. And they said, we can't afford to keep you. And I said, but what if the voiceover thing stops? And they said, then you can come back. And, that was in 1987. As an actor, your last job is for all intents and purposes, your last job. So even though I know I'm on a whole bunch of shows and features, I'm employed for the next several years on certain things, but I don't know what's happening beyond that. I've always had this feeling that this last job is my last job, and I don't take that for granted. So I'm working harder to stay relevant and stay working today than I ever did before.
Didn't you almost lose the job of Porky Pig at one time?
Oh no, I've re-auditioned for Porky at least a dozen times now, and there have been times they've used other people. I mean, I don't have a contract. None of us have contracts for classic characters. I'm a day player, so yeah. There was one time.
Fear is a great motivation.
Well, the bottom line is Mel Blanc had him by the short hairs, and they had to use him. They had nobody else. So there's a bunch of us that have shared these voices. I would say I've done Porky 95% in 31 years. 95%.
Wow.
And when you're teaching voiceover class, you teach voiceover class as well. You teach the business end of show business as well along in that. And part of being relentless and how to get an agent. I mean, these are all things that people out there that want to break into show business want to know about.
Yeah, some of the most talented people in the world have no business sense, and they have no idea how to take that genius that they were born with and get it out there. And then there are some of the most mediocre actors on the planet who've said, I'd like to thank the Academy, in my opinion. So,
Who are those actors?
Well,
Just kidding.
I don't want to badmouth anybody, but there have been many an actor who've collected a trophy for a project that was released 2 years ago, and they know they're working on their third dog since that movie, and they've got to live up to that moment. Happens all the time. But look, Billy, as you were saying, the business of the business. This is show business. So for the voice actor, for the people who want to get into what I do, which is animation, the first thing you do is you study acting. You don't study voiceover if you've never studied acting. I studied acting for 2 years at Meisner Conservatory. I did 3 years at the Groundlings, and I did 4 years with voiceover classes with anybody that offered a class in Los Angeles. And then I pursued representation. And the whole journey from first class to working actor was 9 years. So it didn't happen overnight. And, I'll get people who use that word privilege for me. No, I work my ass off and still do. I am privileged that I'm able to keep doing it, but nothing came by chance. I worked my butt off.
My great friend Howard Morris. Are you familiar with Howard?
Howie directed me in animation several times. He was a character. He was a tough director. Boy, was he a hard director. But he was funny as hell. But what's your story with Howie?
No, Howard was my business partner. We had a commercial production company in the 80s. And, he taught me almost everything I know, including the phrase "fuck 'em up the ass with a meat hook." That came from Howard.
I can hear. I walked in the audition. It was, I forget what it was called, but he goes, "Okay, get your character. You walk in. You say things here. You get the ass, and you become King Jew. You ready?" And I'm like, and I think I'm 19. I said, "Yeah, I guess I am. Sure, why not? Let's go for it. Let's have fun."
And Howie was a great voice artist. He was the voice artist of Mayor McCheese. He was a voice of the Qantas Bear. He did a lot of voices.
He was.
Didn't he do voiceovers for inanimate objects as well?
I think he did. At one point in time, that's how he started. He did voiceovers for inanimate objects. He was a voiceover of like a boxing glove.
Right. He was a vocal genius. I was the voice of the McDonald's French fries for their Happy Meals for about years. And I was so excited because I thought, I'll get to work with Howie, and I'll get to work with Hal Smith and all the other guys. No, they recorded us solo. It kind of ticked me off.
By the way, Hal Smith played Otis the Drump in Andy of Mayberry.
That's right. Also a very successful, talented voice actor.
Yeah.
So how do you psych yourself up? When I was reading about you, you talked more about the acting and how improv helps you with voiceover. And, people say, wow, this guy's got a great gig. He's the voice of a cartoon character. They don't realize the amount of preparation and work. Like anything else, it's always about hard work, discipline, and relentlessness. How do you psych yourself up to act, to be a French fry? I know you took improv classes, and how do you go about that?
It's the same process that an actor does for an on-camera part. Here are my lines. Here's the description of my character. And then, I tell my students that 80% of animation is in the imagination. You have to actually take the writer's words and take it off the page without attempting to improve on their work. See, that's the fine line. You want to add your own flavors and layers and nuances without taking away from what they brought to the table. You want to honor. Look, when you audition for anything, be it a commercial or a cartoon, it might have been years of development before it got to you. They are very married to what they have. On the other hand, an actor might hear a cartoon or a commercial on the air and go, "That's not what they were asking for." Well, somebody took a risk, or they got bored with what they were asking for. So my process, like for a French fry, it's a McDonald's commercial. I think, "Hi, Ronald, we're the Happy Meal guys. You can get a hamburger and fries for only $1 and a cool toy." So, you look at that. I looked at the picture of the puppet. They're puppets. And wide eyes. I always tell my students, if you physically play the character, the voice will follow. They're little guys. and Ronald's big, and Hamburger's big, and there's a little French fries. So I gave him a little voice. I gave him, I was having you guys, okay, and I just thought. Now I will tell you that you can recycle voices and characters. So that's the French fries, okay? Around the holidays, it's going to be an elf. It's going to be an elf for a Christmas special. It's going to be an elf for a commercial. Happy holidays. In a few months, it's going to be a leprechaun for St. Patty's Day. Or you take the same voice, you just give him an accent or a dialect. So you recycle all the things that you can't do that with a classic character because it's a classic character. But when you're creating characters, if I look at the script and he's a cute little guy, I'll start with my cute little voice, and I look at the picture, and he's got a wrinkled nose. I'm gonna make it a little bit more nasal, and he talks on the side of the face. So I'm gonna talk outside my face, which takes a little bit different. And then I look at him. Oh, he's a little gruff and old. So I'm gonna squeeze the back of my throat and make him a little gruff and a little old. And that's how you create the characters from layer upon layer upon layer. But it starts with something. So, and if you don't have an idea of a character's voice to start with, you start with your own voice, because all characters have a voice, but not all voices have character.
And you talk about the distinction of laugh. You say, like, give him. There's an old quote of Charles Dickens, and he always says about his character development. He said, give your character a wart right at the end of his nose, make him unforgettable. And you seem to do it with laughter. You say because every laughter is distinct. And
I call it a signature. It's that something memorable about the character. Whether it's in the script or not, I tell my students, find a place to laugh. Now, I'm not talking about slapping your knee. That was the funniest joke I've ever heard. It could be if your character's in danger, they're lost, it's a dark forest. It could be a nervous laugh. Or if the character is, if there's some kind of a subtext where they're thinking of something on this line, it could be a little something that simple. But you can't just read the words as written. It's going to be boring. If you honor every comma, if you see a word that's underlined, that doesn't mean louder. That means emphasize. You can emphasize with a whisper, but you've got to be creative as an actor. You've got to show the writer, my God, your work is so good. Look where else I could take it. So when you do cartoons for television, for scale minimum, you are hired to do at least 2 characters. So
Frank says that when he's producing, he says usually when people audition, the producers don't really know what they're looking for. They're just looking for somebody to show them what they're looking for, which is exactly what you're saying.
That's one thing that I learned from Howie. And Howie Morris told me the first time you let when you're auditioning an actor, the first time you do it through, because you have to see what he believes. And the truth lies in what he believes. So you can always change his inflection or change his reading somewhat if you're a director, but the first time you have to see what he believes, because that's his truth. And that's where, and he may show you a truth that you hadn't even thought of, and for the actor, and that might be the truth that you go with in the performance.
Well, what this also means, and I teach my students this: do not audition to please the casting director, the producer, the director. Go in there and own it. The only bad choice an actor can make is to not make a choice.
Yep.
So go in there, make your choices, but then be malleable, be bendable to their adjustments. There's an animation voice director who, if it's an actor that she doesn't know well or doesn't know at all, will give them an adjustment that is completely wrong, just to see how they handle themselves under pressure and if they're creative enough to take it. For instance, she might be auditioning an actor to play a 20-something college kid. And then she might say, hey, how would he sound if he was 80? Now, she might know that in episode 12, this character goes through some weird aging process, and she needs to hear that this actor can play that. Or she just wants to see, look, if a casting director says that to me, I'm going to start grinning and say, I've got 25 different ways. I'll start with this one. Because that's what I do. That's what we do. And I've always been this, hang on one second. This is, Alexa, stop. She's a good girl. She's a good girl. Oh, I don't know what she was told earlier, but that is not what anybody. Take the kitty cat vein tooth in. I don't know what that means. Okay. You as an actor, you've got to own the room. But there's a fine line between confidence and cocky. Nobody wants cocky, but every time an actor walks in that room and it looks like in a cartoon audition, probably Frank in an on-camera audition, you've got to play this character as if this character's always lived. Yeah. It's not brand new today. You are bringing in something because when you shoot a pilot, for all intents and purposes, as rehearsed and planned as it is, this is the first time these characters have said these words. It has to be extemporaneous, it has to be spontaneous, but it has to have character. Yep. And that takes, look, if you look at a Jimmy Stewart movie, it's always Jimmy Stewart. But my God, he is the building and loan dad, and he's also the cowboy. I mean, he could just put on any costume and still play Jimmy Stewart, but he's still authentic and believable. Tom Hanks is the same way. I mean, there are actors out there that they're not like that morphing kind of an actor where they're just like a miracle.
I found that interesting. You mentioned Tom Hanks in an interview you did that he had said that Toy Story was the toughest part he ever did.
I sent him a
because of the inflection in the voice had to carry over where you can't do mannerisms on video where it's all in the voice.
Well, he was on Graham Norton, which is a BBC talk show. He was saying how he didn't realize how much as an actor he relied on a glance or a blink or a tear. You can't vocalize a tear. You have to vocalize crying. And when you record an animated feature, it's just like recording a live action feature. You don't record it in order. Your first day might be the middle of the film. Your second day might be the end. You might wait 7 months and go back and do the beginning. When I work on an animated feature, they never show me the full script. They only show me the pages I'm in. Right. So I need to rely on a very good director who understands the continuity, who understands the other scene part. You work by yourself. You work solo. You have no scene partner to work off of other than the director.
Bob, let me ask you a question. You worked on, gosh darn it, now I forget the name of the movie. The basketball movie with Shaq. I'm with
Space Jam?
Yeah, Space Jam.
Space Jam.
You worked on both Space Jams, did you not?
My name has been associated with the sequel. I had signed NDA saying I won't talk about it, but they've already listed me in various articles. So all I can tell you is I'm somehow in it. Yes, that's all I can say.
The original Space Jam. Were you in that?
I was absolutely in the original one. Yeah.
Okay, so you didn't work with Michael Jordan, though, did you?
No, they were shooting the live action at the same time we were doing the voiceover, and I never got to actually even meet him. In fact, on the lot, they had a big party at the Warner Brothers, that little town square area. They had a backlot party after the premiere, and I saw this giant bald head walking in the distance. I went, "Oh my God, I've got to go meet him!" And I went running up to him, and these giant, like Hulk-like security stopped me. And this guy comes, he looks at me, nobody talks to Michael. I said, "Hi, I'm Porky Pig and Tweety." He goes, "No, you're Mickey Mouse. You ain't talking to Michael." Okay, all right.
Using that voice, Porky Pig, and you've been doing this since you're 8 years old, 7 years old?
Well, I mean, professionally since I was like 26. But
yeah, but you did it all your life. It must have opened up a lot of doors to you. Now, my mind automatically flashes to like a 19-year-old kid in the bar going up to meet a girl and start talking like Porky Pig. You must have used that. Come on.
You know what? I never did it for romantic purposes. I a little creepy, but I tell you. So when I was really little, I used to go to the principal's office all the time because when I was like in kindergarten, and a teacher would say, "If I have 2 apples and I give you, and you give me 2 more apples, how many apples will I have?" And I would say, "Let me get this straight. you got 2 apples, and I give you my 2 apples. Oh, that's easy. That's you get 1 less than 5." So much trouble. But I'll tell you another time I used it. Right after 9/11, I was with some friends, and the world was, of course, depressed. And it was like late at night, and I said, "You guys, let's go to Krispy Kreme and just get drunk on glazed donuts." And they said, "Okay." So I pull up to the drive-through, and the lady says, "Can I take your order?" And I said, "Give me a second. We're still trying to figure it out." And a guy's voice came on and said, "Let me know when you're ready." And I said, "Ooh, you changed your voice." She came back and said, "Yes, I did. Now you change yours."
Whoa.
Uh-huh.
Friends, and I said, I ordered a dozen glazed donuts like Porky Pig, and there was a long pause, and she said,
Bob, what would that sound like?
Can I have a dozen glazed? A dozen glazed. Can I have 12 of your best?
and I'm with the story. Remind me to tell you about the stutter and the ad-lib. So she said, pull up to the second window, and she hands me 3 dozen glazed donuts. And I said, "I think you didn't understand me." She said, "No, I absolutely understood you. This is the first laugh we've had since the tragedy. These are on the house. Have a nice night." And so I looked at my friends and I said, "We should go to a Porsche dealer next."
Yeah, I think if I could have that talent, I would never stop with it. I mean, I was even telling my wife I would do it in bed. I mean, I would do it everywhere.
Well, so here's the thing. People ask me all the time, do you do it at grocery store? So my voice is it's a dime a dozen. Nobody knows. And it wasn't until, Comic-Con and the internet that people even knew who the voice actors were. But, you don't want to always go out there and perform. I mean, some people do, and it can be obnoxious, but I liken it to, look, does the proctologist demonstrate every time he goes to the grocery store? I don't think so. And neither does Porky.
Yeah.
I have a question. Earlier in the conversation, we were talking about Tom Hanks, and you said you sent him something, but you were cut off.
Oh, I sent him a thank you note.
Oh, okay.
I just said thank you, because what he did was you're on this side of the glass, and the producers and they're on that side of the glass. You do a take, unless they push the talkback button, you don't hear a word, and all you see is disappointed faces. And you're thinking, my God, they're calling right now. They are calling another talent agency and finding someone to replace me. No, they're not. Oftentimes they're just debating on what to order for lunch. It has nothing to do with. I'll tell you what I did once. I was 19, and this was the days of live auditions. Now we audition from our home studio. I wanted to know what they were saying when they weren't pushing the talkback button. Okay, so I put a tape recorder in my backpack and I sat it next to the director, and then I walked into the booth and so this is what I saw from my perspective after I did a take. They pushed the talkback button and they said, "That was great, Bob. Thank you very much. Hang on one second. Don't go away. We loved it. Hang on." Seriously, we loved it. Hang on. And I'm thinking, it's clear glass, okay? I can see you. don't. On my tape recorder, this is what I heard. "That was great, Bob. Hang on one second. We loved it. Hang on. Did you order pizza with anchovies? Ah, God.
Wow.
Who's got pizza? Wow. Probably offending this poor actor. Hang on. Seriously, we loved it." And from that point on, pay no attention to the man across the glass, because it probably has nothing to do with you.
Ignore the man behind the curtain, huh? That's a funny story, because naturally you're going to think that I suck. I'm terrible. These guys hate me. They're giving the vomit sign and everything else.
And I will also tell you that some of what I thought were some of my worst audition moments I've booked. And sometimes when I thought I rocked the microphone, not even a callback. There is no rhyme or reason. But if you're good, they can only hire one person. And by the way, the casting director is basically just the messenger. The casting director doesn't make the final call. The producer does. The network does. Or the company, the toy company that owns the cartoon character does. But if they loved your read and you don't get it, that casting director is going to remember you for something else. That producer who is dying to work with you, but their boss made them hire somebody else, they'll remember you. But you want to be remembered.
Yep. Stephen Lapp told us that Jim Cameron when he got a call for Avatar, Jim Cameron had remembered him from an audition he had done 10 years prior, and he called him for Avatar 10 years later for the role of Colonel Quaritch.
Not uncommon at all. That is such a very, very common. Look, people want to work with talented people. And again, you can only hire one. For me, and for my contemporaries, oftentimes the celebrity will get the lead in the animated feature. We'll play all the utility players, but they'll play the lead. My ego would love to play Woody in Toy Story, but the guy with the mortgage payment is pleased as punch to play 30, 40 incidental characters and doing what I love.
Yeah.
Well, you talk a lot about integrity, and I noticed that the first time you taught anything, you wouldn't take any pay for it because you weren't sure if you were a good teacher. And also, you stuck to your guns about a Looney Tunes production that you thought was going a little off color. Why don't you tell us about that?
Really, I'm impressed with your research. That's very cool. It was a time when they were doing a movie called Looney Tunes Back in Action, and they were going to release 12 shorts leading up to the release of the feature, do one short a month. And I had to audition for it, and I got it. And they hired a director who told us that he was taking over the Looney Tunes franchise, the department, and he was going to be the new executive producer of these characters. And I'm looking at the script and the shorts. He wanted me to change the way I played Porky, and some of the jokes were off color. And I'm not a prude at all, but they weren't just pushing the envelope; they were pushing a box of envelopes. And I do not argue with directors. If I have a different way to do it, I will do it exactly the way they're asking. And I'll say, hey, can I try one for me, just for me? Whether they use it or not is their discretion when I leave the studio. I have no idea what they're going to pick, but at least creatively, I gave them an option. He would hear none. And these were just blue, and they were just off color. And I went to my agent. I was at William Morris at the time. And I went to my agent, and I said, I don't believe I'm saying this, but if this is the direction that they plan to take these characters from here on, I think I want to quit. And my agent, like any good agent, without looking up from his desk, he's still writing. He goes, well, you can't quit because they just fired you. I went, oh, well, shit. Then I was pissed because quitting was my choice. Now I was fired. I'm pissed. And I'd been playing the character at the time for 12 years, and I thought that was 12 fun years. I don't want to be a part of this if this is where they're taking the character. Those shorts never saw the light of day. This evidently the director had in his contract, he had carte blanche. Nobody looking over his shoulder. He can just do it. Well, evidently somebody got wind of what he was doing, and they shelved the whole thing. And he was eventually fired. And 6 months later, I got called to do a series called Duck Dodgers. So look, the bottom line is integrity is the only thing as a human, not a performer or a writer or a producer. That's what we own. We own our integrity. Give you another example. They're doing a reboot of a show called Tiny Toons, which is the first job I ever did as Porky Pig back in 1990. They're rebooting it. And they're not using some of the original actors for whatever reason. I contacted this week one of the original actors who's now a voice director, and I'm doing a series with him right now. But I popped him a note and I said, listen, I will not read for this. They requested I read for this, but I will not read for this if you'd rather I didn't. He popped me a note back and he goes, they're not going to use me. You have my blessing. I hope you get it. But my point of saying that is, you don't find a lot of that in the world of on camera. And the new generation of voiceover, you're not finding it. But my generation and before, you didn't take anybody else's job away. If they were in a contract dispute, look, like The Simpsons, Futurama, they have been in so many contract disputes. And I always tell my students, look, let get the money because their shows are making Fox a fortune. They can afford to pay the actors whatever they want. And someday, if the planets align, you'll be in the same situation as an actor, and you don't want your contemporaries, your peers, going after your work too. If it's the type of thing where in the 80s, I studied with a guy named Dawes Butler, and he was the voice of Captain Crunch. And they changed ad agencies. Quaker Oats changed ad agencies, and they wanted to make the character younger. So they were recasting. And I called Dawes, and I said, I'm not going to read for it. It's your character. And he said, He was a sweet man, very, very sweet guy, very honestly. Oh, listen, I'm not doing it. They're replacing me. Why don't you come to my studio? I'll coach you. So look, I didn't get it. I didn't get it. I wasn't right for it. But the bottom line is, he knew he was out, and I had his blessing. But I couldn't imagine going after somebody's job, number one, or number two. If it's a done deal, they're replacing. I want the other actor's blessing before I give it a shot. And I totally respect that they say I'd rather you didn't do that.
Right. Hey, Bob, what are some of your other characters that you are famous for, or what would we know you for?
For Looney Tunes,
I did Tweety, the little birdie who hates that big old putty tat.
I've done Marvin the Martian. I did Marvin the Martian in Space Jam. I'm going to blow up the Earth. It obstructs my view of Venus. Isn't that lovely? I've done Sylvester Jr. Many people don't realize that Sylvester has a son. And Sylvester Jr. would see a kangaroo thinking it's a giant mouse, and he'd go,
Oh, Father, look, it's a giant mouth. Go get him, Pop.
I've voiced Luke Skywalker for a lot of Star Wars properties, games, and cartoons for the last 20-something years.
Didn't you also do Speedy Gonzalez?
I see. I did Speedy Gonzalez y Casas más no Mexico. All right, I'm gonna eat her.
Wow.
Hey, you know what? I was thinking about it. You know what I'd love to see? I'd love to see Billy O'Connor interviewing Porky Pig.
Let's do it, buddy.
Yeah,
All right. That's a hell of a thing you threw on me there, interviewing Porky Pig himself, huh? So, Porky, tell me, how long you been in show business?
Oh, well, but back when I used to start, I was discovered on a farm. I was just a little piglet. And they see a talent scout from Warner Brothers saw me and said, would you like to be would you like to start a cartoon? You like cartoons? And I said, oh, sure.
Oh, I could never.
I left the farm. I shook the hand of my mother and father, and I said, that's all, folks. And the guy from Warner Brothers said, that's good. We're going to use that.
I could never turn off that spigot. That's just automatic laugh. That's fantastic.
I will tell you that, when I'm stuttering and I do the ad lib, the joke at the end, oftentimes it's in the script. More often than not, it just flows out of me. And people will say to me, well, how long do you stutter until you think of do the joke? I'm like, the wheels are spinning. I stutter as long as it takes me to think of something funny to say. But you got to stay in the moment. You got to honor what's happening in the script right there. But, this is the improv in me, improvisational actor.
And you don't like the writers to write the stutter into the script, do you?
Well, the problem is, and when I work on a brand new series or a brand new project, that very first day, they write in all P, put that down, D, Daffy. And it takes me forever to find the damn story. Mm. So I will do it as written that first day. And then I will, as politely as I can, I don't want to, they think they're doing me a favor. And I don't want to insult them, but I'll say, hey, listen, if you don't put the stutter in, I can find the story. But when it's written like this, there's too many dashes and letters. So Matt Craig, who was our showrunner on New Looney Tunes, I guess about 7 years ago, he came up with a formula that I take with me to every new project today. So what he'll do is he'll type the line and he'll put an ellipses and then the joke. That ellipses means stutter. And that I can see and follow easily. So I take that formula. We're doing 200 new shorts for HBO Max right now. And I took those to Pete Browngardt, and Jack Fletcher is our brilliant director. And I said, this will work for me. And if you get your writers just to get used to that, it's a breeze. And so that's what I do.
You mentioned Mark Hamill before. Your acquaintance with Mark Hamill came mostly through Star Wars, or because he's a voiceover guy too? I was surprised to hear that.
Well, no, Mark is a brilliant voiceover artist. And so we don't know each other well. We've met each other on occasion. The first time I met him was at Comic-Con years ago. This is fun. When it was in the 80s, I think, when they held auditions for a Star Wars game. and they wanted Luke Skywalker. And I said to my agent, I don't do Mark Hamill. I can't do that voice, so I'm going to pass. And she said, okay. She calls the producers, and the producer calls her back, and the producer says, we still want to hear him. I said, okay. And I walked into the studio to audition. I said, guys, I can't do Mark Hamill. And they said, don't do Mark Hamill. Play Luke Skywalker. I went, oh, okay. They said, look, your voice is in the same area as his. And they educated. I'm a Star Wars fan. I'm not a Star Wars fanatic. So they educated me on pre-Jedi Luke, post-Jedi Luke. Mark had an inflection in his voice when he was young Luke. And he was kind of whiny, and then he got the Force, and he got a little bit more adult and a little bit more centered. And more recent films, he's a little grizzled, because he's an older guy. But when I got the job, which surprised me, I had my agent call Mark's agent and say, if he wants it, it's his. I will not take it away from him. It was a time when he was trying to distance himself from the typecasting. He didn't want it at all. So, okay, great. And it's been 20-something years. He's done it since because he got back into the franchise happily. But it's I'm not well versed in the Star Wars universe, so they always have to educate me on how to pronounce planets. And there's other characters in Clone Wars. I played this character Lama Su, and I'm gonna get close to the mic because it's a very quiet voice. He's sort of this very dry, doesn't have a lot of emotion, sort of British, but he's a villain, very calculated, and very different than anything else I was doing with Looney Tunes or Mark Hamill's.
But I could see how your face just became the character. It wasn't just the voice. You had to get in character.
You have to. It has to be like that. It has to be in an instant, because you'll have a 2 or 3-way conversation with yourself, and if you change physically, facially between characters, you won't blend sounds or personalities. The most I've ever played in a single episode was 7 characters in a show in the 80s.
Wow.
That's when I discovered margaritas.
Speaking of discoveries, Bob, you're responsible for the discovery of a really brilliant young woman who I knew from growing up in North White Plains, New York, who at the age of 40 or 45 or so became a voice actress. Yeah. And why don't you tell us a little about Marion Mascaro?
So Marion, I taught a class in New York, and she was in the class. And she was okay. She wasn't fabulous. She was okay. She was still very new to it. And then a few months later, she contacted me. She goes, hey, somebody asked me about doing a class in Atlanta. Would you be interested? And I said, would you be interested in helping me put it together? I said, here's the deal. I'll give you a free class. I will give you every class for free, and I'll give you 10% of what I make. And so we're in Atlanta, and it was going great. By the way, she continued to produce my out-of-town classes for years, really up until COVID. And we're having dinner one night. And I said, what is it you really want to do in voiceover? And without skipping a beat, she said, award show announcing. I said, what are you doing about it? And she goes, well, what should I do about it? I said, well, for God's sake, you live in New York. The first thing you're going to do is join NATS, which is the organization that produces the Daytime Emmys. And you're going to get yourself involved with everything that NATS allows you to get involved in. Volunteer for every committee. Meet and rub elbows with the players. Get to know the people that do the awards. And she took her many years, but she started to really become friendly with the people that do the daytime, the New York Emmys. And I said, you need a demo just for award show announcing, and she made one. You know, she put her money where her mouth was. And my God, I think this will be her 8th, 9th, or 10th year doing the New York Emmys. She has done the Creative Arts Emmys for the Primetime Emmys. She's done the SAG Awards. She's done the Critics' Choice Awards. But what she did was she took my advice. I wanted to be one character. She wanted to do one genre specifically for a voiceover. And she kept finding that she was working more for, all these award shows were in LA. So she finally moved here.
Yeah, she moved here. A lot of was at your urging and a lot of my aging. I believe Derek has a picture of us at me, you, Mary, and
At the Emmys?
at the Emmy Award.
Yeah.
And she was 40, and her mother was my mother's best friend
Right.
in
Right.
in North White Plains, New York. Picture of us all at the Emmys, and it's really a remarkable story that she was 40 years old and hadn't even remotely thought of doing this, and now she's a big voiceover talent. And you're very much.
She was very close. She was very close to her mom.
Yeah.
And, you know, if her mother had said to her, "Hey, let's move to Los Angeles," she would have done this sooner. But she was very close to her mom. She lived with her mom, and when her mom passed, she was like, "Why am I still here?" So, by the way, Frank, she also she lives in Valencia.
Yeah.
She lives in a condo complex around the corner from when I used to live in Valencia back in 1990. And I knew these condos back where it was the same floor plan I had. So I'm Skyping with her and showing it to her. And she says, "I love it. Let's buy it." I said, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa. You're not going to come out here and see it yourself?" She said, "No, I trust you." I said, "Do not trust me on real estate." No. But that's exactly what she did.
Valencia, in 1990s, we had a cameraman. I was doing Daddy Dearest.
Mm-hmm.
Rickles said to the cameraman, Rocco, where do you live?" And Rocky Danielson said, "Valencia." And Rickles, just that quickly, said, "Ah, yes, Valencia, where the road meets the dirt."
There was no civilization there. If I wanted the closest restaurant, I would drive to Northridge. I mean, it was just a totally, just a barren area of dirt. He's right. And now I'll drive around there and get lost because it's a bustling town.
And Magic Mountain's in Valencia for the uninitiated.
That's right.
Into Los Angeles County. For the many thousands of you who are watching.
That's right.
But you wear a lot of hats, man. You're very flexible. Like you take your own advice. I read also when you did interviews during the Hollywood History Parade or whatever, because you're well versed in old movies.
So the Hollywood Christmas Parade. They have live interviewers on the grandstands for the people in the audience. They got Bob Eubanks for the TV, but they hired talent to interview the celebrities going by. And I did that for about 10 years. It was I got to interview Jimmy Stewart. I got to interview Sammy Davis Jr. Oh my God, Roseanne Barr slapped the shit out of me. Because one year she had just married Tom Arnold. And I said, "Ladies and gentlemen, Roseanne Barr." And she backhands me. She goes, "It's Arnold, asshole." And I went flying, and I thought, wow, if this happened today, would I be rich? With all the taking pictures of everything. It was so much fun. Listen, I'm a Hollywood fan. Being a tour guide at Universal Studios, my days off, I would walk the lot. I would knock on casting directors' doors. I would walk in and out of the Western set. So to do the Hollywood Christmas Parade, I was a kid in a candy store. I got to interview and meet some of oh my God, Steve Allen. I got to chat with Steve, even for a moment, asking him pertinent questions because I was a fan of The Tonight Show when he was on.
Oh, I was a huge fan of Steve Allen. He was so original, so spontaneous, and again, like an improv genius. He could just go. And talented musician. I mean, he wrote some amazing,
thousands of songs.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah. But you also writing a book. You've already written the book, and of all things, you're writing about agents. Voiceover agents.
I actually abandoned that book, and here's why.
You can't make any money.
What's that?
You can't make any money writing books, right, Billy?
Well, today you don't write a book to make a ton of money. You write a book because you have something you want to put out. I mean, I had a literary agent for a time who finally said, "You know what, self-publish, because the editors will be down your throat wanting you to change this, that, and the other." The agent book I abandoned because technology kept advancing and changing so much that by the time I finished interviewing every agent, the agents started becoming obsolete. They started, hang on one second, Alexa, stop. Alexa, thank you, bitch. Um, yeah, the agent's offices were closing. The business model had kept changing. It became obsolete by the time I was ready to get it out there. I am working on, and I work on stuff, guys, and then I'm doing 25 different things, so I go in this direction, that direction. What I'm working on right now is a book I'm calling Porky Dishes, where it's just anecdotes. It's not a lot of the stories we're talking about right now, but every chapter comes with a delicious pork recipe.
Oh.
Speedy Gonzalez could have carnitas.
Absolutely.
A Jew writes about pork. That could be a good title. A Jew writes about pork.
Yeah, or the subtitle would be "Don't judge me, Rabbi."
Yeah. Billy, let's wrap this up. Billy, you have any last words? Derek, you have any last questions you want to ask?
I'm curious. I'm curious, Bob, if you've actually created your own characters and
Oh, I do that every day.
okay.
That is the bulk of what I do. I'm doing a series right now for Netflix, and I can talk about it because they already put it in the press. It's called Ridley Jones, and without going into a lot of detail,
I play the villain. I play the villain. He owns a museum, and he's not a nice guy, and he doesn't like children.
so yeah, the majority of my day to day is creating new.
Okay.
Bob, I got a question for you. Is there anything you'd like our audience to know about what you got coming up, or something you'd like to push or promote?
That I can talk about.
Yes.
Looney Tunes on HBO Max, Ridley Jones on Netflix. I can't talk about that. I can't talk about that. I can't talk about that. I can tell the fans that something really humongous is going to be coming on Disney Plus, that they're going to go, oh, no way. So I can't wait for that to be announced, and I don't know when it's coming on, and I can't say anything more.
Are you doing voiceovers for these projects, or can you talk that? Can you let us know that? That's what you're doing.
Yeah, I am doing voiceover for these projects, yeah.
Hey, Bob, I was wondering if you could say it was a pleasure, if Porky could say it was a pleasure being on a Mick, a Mook, and a Mike, and then sign off.
It's been a pleasure being on a Mick and I've had a great time with which one of you guys is mine? That's all.
Oh, terrific. I'd never be able to turn that off. That's just fantastic.
That's great.
It's instant laughter.
I'm telling you right now, Billy, you're kind of like an Ed Norton meets Yogi Bear. I'm going to use your voice. I don't know when, but I'm going to use your voice.
And his laugh. And his laugh.
I'm flattered. I'm absolutely flattered. Feel free to plagiarize it.
I'll give you 10%.
Nice.
I'll take 10% of anything. I work with Frank. I don't get 10% of anything. Frank's so tight you can't get a BB up his ass with a jackhammer.
Yeah, but I gotta tell you, he's doing some good product, and he keeps going. So, listen, he's paying somebody something. I mean, you can't get Candace Bergen to keep coming back to do stuff for Scale Plus 10.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
So happy to have you on, Bob. A real pleasure to meet you, man. You've been a delight, absolute delight.
You too, and boy, did you guys do your research! Holy cow, I'm impressed.
Well,
Good job.
we have no talent. We have to fall back on research.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you, my friend. Good to see you.
Thank you, brother.
Go.
Pleasure.
So, how'd you like that, Billy?
Well, that was flattering. The guy did my voice. I said, "That's fantastic. I wish I taped it." Well, I do have it. Fortunately, we have it on video. I can play that back.
Yes, we do. We do.
He was great, just great. I mean, like I said, I don't think I'd be able to turn off that spigot. As soon as he opens the Porky Pig mouth, it's hilarious. I mean, I'd be doing it in bars. I'd be doing it in bed. I'd be doing it everywhere. I'd never shut that off.
All you had to do was get laid once.
Yes, exactly.
If it worked once, it'll work again. Exactly right.
Billy, hit those corners.
Hit those.
Yeah.
Hit those corners.
I tell you, Frankie, you might have heard this story on the phone, but I'll tell Derek the story anyway.
Billy.
Yes.
Corners. Mouth corners.
Oh, okay.
Foaming at the mouth. What are you saying is you're foaming at the mouth, Billy?
I'm just gonna say corners from now on. Corners.
I said corners. I'm thinking around. I said, what corner? I'm not hanging around a corner. I was living in New Orleans with this guy, very bright guy. He had a master's degree. He was on the radio. He had a talk show. I mean, on the radio show. And his name was Roy Silbert. He just passed away about a year ago. Real dear friend of mine. And I met him in Belgium, actually, but we were living together in New Orleans. And I was out. I was asleep like at 11 o'clock, one of the rare nights I went to sleep in New Orleans early. And he was doing LSD, right? He was out in the French Quarter doing LSD. And I wake up about 7:30 in the morning. I'm putting on coffee. And he's sitting in the living room watching cartoons, right? And he's watching the cartoons. And because he's whacked and it's 8 o'clock Saturday morning. I'm going about making breakfast. I'm not paying no attention. All of a sudden I hear, after about an hour of me making my eggs and everything, I hear him go, "No way." And I look in and I said, "What do you mean, no way?" There's no way a duck is going to fall 20 stories and actually get up and be able to walk away. I said, "Wait a second, let me get this straight." For the last hour, you've been watching a duck and a pig with a straw hat and a cane dancing, no problem. You've been watching, they're both talking, telling us, no problem. But you ain't buying that a duck is falling 20 floors. That's crossing the line. I mean, that was my animation story. But drugs is always in my stories somehow.
Good thing he didn't have a coyote falling off a cliff with an anvil falling on him. That he would believe it also, right?
That'd definitely be a no way.
That's hilarious.
That's what they call a moment of clarity.
Yeah.
You know, I tell you my moment of clarity. I had the first time I ever did LSD. It was 1969. Sorry, 1967 in Charleston, South Carolina. And I met this guy from Ohio who was a real screwball. And I turned him on to pot for the first time in 1967. Now, in them days, pot was, I like to call it the wink club. You know, you say to somebody, "Hey, you hip," you know, and then you get the wink back. That, you know, it was a really clandestine thing. It wasn't like it is now, wide open. So I turned him on to pot. The very next day, he says to me, "Oh man, that was really great." He goes, "Why don't you try this shit?" And he hands me 2 tabs of LSD. I said, "Whoa," I said, "Take it easy. You just did pot yesterday. Now you're coming back on LSD. I know what that shit is. Well, look out. LSD, look out, super dope. I know what that means. I'm not going near it." But of course, I'm Irish and I can't resist temptation.
You went after it.
So I eat the tab of acid. So we're driving. And after about 30 minutes, I start getting this taste in my mouth. Like a real acrid taste. I throw a piece of juicy fruit in my mouth. And this juicy fruit explodes in my mouth. And I said, "Oh my God. This shit is fantastic." I said, "What do they call this shit? Gum? Gum? How do they keep this shit on the shelves, right? This stuff is fantastic, right?" And now I remember the radio was playing, and Sam and Dave was playing Soul Man, was on the radio. And I swear to God, the horns were coming out of my chest. Like it was like something out of The Alien or something. Like the thing was bursting to get out of my chest. And the music was alive. And I looked over at the radio, and the radio starts melting.
Oh my God.
Going down to the floor, and I'm like, "Whoa, I'm really screwed up," you know? So I look out the window, and a car is passing us. The only problem is the car's passing us with all 4 wheels looking at me. You know? And it's like a slinky. It's like elongating, and then the back is catching up to it. Now I give it one of these, like I'm a mess. Like, and I have a moment of clarity. I said, "Wait a minute. The guy driving the car, the guy who my life is in his hands, he took the same shit I did, you know?" What am I doing? So I look over at this guy, and I swear to God, his head looked like something out of the Macy's Day Parade, you know, it all blown up like in my mind, and his tongue was hanging out of his mouth like a slick seal, you know, and he's trying to. I says, "How bias?" I says, "You got to pull over. Are you crazy? How are you driving?" He says, "Wherever the white line goes, man." He says, "That's where I go. Wherever the white line goes." Now, like I realize I'm in a jackpot here. This guy's a mess. And we come to a bridge. Now the bridges in South Carolina, they use this topography. It's a bridge for for sailboats to pass through. You know, it's like over a canal. But instead of raising the bridges, they use the topography to make a straight bridge. But hydraulically, what they do is they go from vertical to horizontal. They just twist, right? So the sailboats can go through and then they go back. So the barrier comes down. We stop. Thank God there's 3 or 4 cars ahead of us. We stop, and all of a sudden the bridge starts to turn. And he says to me, "Wow, man. Wow, isn't this acid amazing?" He says, "Doesn't it look like the bridge is turning?"
Oh my God.
I said, "Yeah, man. Holy shit. It looks like the bridge is turning, man." I said, this acid is unbelievable. Then I have another moment of clarity. I said, wait a minute. If that bridge ain't really turning, why are all the other cars stopped? And this is his answer. This is the brains of the alpha. This is the guy who my life is in his hands. He turns around at me and goes, "Wow, man. Everybody's tripping, man."
Oh.
Everybody's tripping. That's our brain. That's your brain on drugs.
You're too much. Well, that'll wrap it up for this week. We're back next week with who do we have on it? We have Verzi on next week.
Oh,
right?
we got Paul Verzi on. Paul Verzi is starting his own podcast with Bill Burr, and he's a great comic. I met Paul, I guess, about 7 years ago up on a comedy festival, and he's done nothing but climb since. He headlines all over the country. He had a #1 selling comedy album last year. Matter of fact, I came out in Manhattan about 2 years ago, and I come out of the subway, and there on right in the middle of 42nd Street was a huge billboard of Paul.
Well,
And he's decided he's doing me a favor by coming on, because he's just a great guy. You gotta love him, Frank.
that's great. I look forward to meeting him. Remember these. Check out If These Lips Could Talk. I hear it's a very funny book, and we'll be back next week, and we'll be reviewing the first week of President Biden's term.
I just want to mention on a Mick and Mook and a Mike that Armin Katayan, I can never pronounce his name. Armin Katayan has the HBO special Tiger going on right now, and we kindly interviewed Armin about 3 or 4 weeks ago. So subscribe to a Mick and Mook and a Mike on YouTube or Facebook, and check out some of those archives, because John, we've had some great guests, and most of it was because of you. So,
well, thank you, everybody. See you next week.
That's all, folks.
That's all, folks. Take care. Thank you.
We'll see you next week.